there is a strange interpretation spread among people we heard it when we were young about the issue of the similarity of the Japanese, because we always heard that the similarity that they have in it, because of the nuclear bomb that was launched on Hiroshima. In fact, this is wrong and does not have any basis from health, and maybe what made some people wonder and say this, that they often had a mix about the effect of the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima, because the nuclear bomb caused the emergence of a large number of aliens which were present at the time of the explosion, but of course it did not change the shape of the Japanese or anything. And the biggest evidence for this is that the pictures in front of you now are pictures of the Japanese before the Hiroshima accident for decades. So the Japanese people are already in this shape from ancient times. The first half will explain why the Japanese look like each other. As for the second half, we will explain why the Japanese look not like each other, and don't be surprised because you will understand everything. In fact, if you saw a Japanese person among the pictures of people from other nationalities, you will probably be able to recognize this Japanese person very easily, and this is a clue that indicates that the Japanese they look like each other. And there are common features between them, and if you are wondering why this similarity, let's summarize it in several points. The people of the Asian street, all of them, whether Japan or China or Korea or others, they all belong to the same origin, and from the same lineage, which is the lineage of the original Maghoul. And the original Maghoul people, those had a special shape. God created them for him from the beginning of his life, and they remained married between them and each other for many centuries. And they did not choose any other people, and they were able to keep their children clean from the beginning of their existence to this day, and this special shape is nothing but the narrow-eyed eye, and the straight hair, and the small nose. And one of the studies explained that the reason for these characteristics in particular is that these people at the beginning, and before they spread across the earth, they were the tribes of Aisha in the northern region. And our Lord, may God be pleased with them, has enlightened their eyes in a beautiful way to adapt to the extreme cold, wind and scorching sun and the narrow-eyed eye to reduce the effects of too cold breaths. And thus he can maintain their body's temperature, and add to this also that one of the reasons of the extreme similarity between these people is that they shared the kind of food that they ate, and which considerably depends on fish and seafood. Those who live in America will feel that their features are not as special as those who have lived in Japan all their lives. The main reason for this is that they eat different foods and live in different environments. In other words, Japanese people in America are different from Japanese people in Japan. This is something that you can easily notice in most Hollywood movies. So, in the end, if you ask why Japanese people are similar to each other, the answer is simply that they were able to maintain their traditions for many centuries. In addition to their participation in the same food system that has been established for hundreds of years, and also their participation in the same weather and environmental conditions. Back to the second half of the topic, which is why Japanese people are different. Before you get surprised, let me ask you a simple question. Do you think Egyptians are similar to each other or not? Or in other words, is there a degree of similarity between Egyptians as there is a degree of similarity between Japanese people? Before you answer, let me tell you that the answer is yes. Egyptians really have a great similarity in appearance, as there is a similarity between the Japanese people. In fact, this is not a matter of the Egyptians or the Japanese, but it is a constant basis for all peoples and races of the world, just as Japan, China, and Korea are related to each other. In addition to the fact that the Egyptians and Europeans are similar to each other, the Americans, Europeans, and the people of North Africa also have a similarity and belong to the same group, namely the Caucasians. Also, South African and Greek peoples have common characteristics and belong to the same group. There is a famous story that happened in the United States of America in September 2015. The subject was that there was a person who fell into the hands of a credit card dedicated to another person, and he was able to use it illegally. But over time, he was able to use it illegally. And the strange thing is that when he was arrested, he remained standing in his place and did not move, but he was also surprised by what was happening. And after he was imprisoned, and during his interrogation in the police department, he tried to tell them that he was innocent and did not do anything. And the surprising thing is that after the procedures and investigations, they really found out that they arrested a wrong person, because of the great similarity in shape between him and the criminal they were looking for. And in fact, it is not only the policemen who pass by this situation, but we all experience a similar situation every day. On television, airports, or tourist areas, when we see a group of people with yellow skin, for example, we feel that they are similar to each other, and immediately we say to them, Japanese, although they may be Chinese or Koreans, or even from Indonesia. But away from that, let's ask a question. Are these people really similar to each other or not? A group of researchers in the United States, they tried to explain this subject and came up with a conclusion, and they called it the cross-race effect. And in Arabic, this means that there is a cognitive phenomenon that makes it difficult for people of a certain race to recognize people of another race or gender. That is, we as Egyptians or Arabs in general have not been exposed to enough different groups of people from other races, and we have not interacted with them in an intensive way. And so we feel that they are all similar to each other, although they are not similar to each other, to the extent that we are convinced that they are not similar to each other. To understand the subject, let me tell you a story. If we assume that Shamshon and Shamshona have two twin daughters, these two daughters are a copy of the carbon from each other. Over time, the father and mother can separate between these two twin daughters, and they can easily distinguish them from each other. The reason for this is that he mixed them with the two daughters for a long time, and thus he notices differences between them. And their eyes see things that we as ordinary people do not live with them. We can't see it or distinguish it. And if the twin daughter, for example, it is impossible for the twin daughter to be able to distinguish them from each other or notice any differences. Although the two daughters, from the point of view of their father and mother, there are many noticeable differences between them, but no one can differentiate between them, except the one who lived with them for a long time and mixed them in many situations. And this is the simple idea in the same context. When we talk about the Japanese actually have similar features to each other. But when you live with the people more and walk among them more and listen to them and look at their faces more and deal with them more, you will find them very different from each other. And over time, it will create a different and deeper ability to differentiate between them and each other. And let's make a nice experiment. We will show pictures of three people and try to guess if the people in the pictures are Chinese or Japanese. Did you know if these three people are Chinese or Japanese? Or not yet? In fact, dear viewer, these three pictures are neither Japanese nor Chinese. These three people are Korean. But when we see someone with narrow eyes, flat eyebrows, soft hair and bleaches, he is Japanese immediately. And most Asian people feel that they have a lot of similarities with each other. Whether it is Kazakhstan, Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, or even Malaysia, although each country has its own features that are completely different from the other country. And each of the people can easily distinguish the other people. That is, if a Japanese person sees a Korean person, he will be able to immediately determine that he is Korean. But if we see a Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Malaysian, or anything else, we will also say Japanese. And the truth is, the strangest thing I can tell you is that although we say that the Japanese are similar to each other, as a second race they have never been exposed to each other. Or they have been exposed to each other a little in tourist areas, for example. And let me tell you that there is a group of doctors from the British University of Glasgow who adopted this phenomenon and made an experiment on it. And they brought a group of people. The first group was from East Asia, Japanese, Chinese and others. And the second group was from outside the region of East Asia, whether they were Arabs or Europeans, and they began to show a few pictures of each group. And these pictures had people from the same race and other people from another race that were strange to them. And they put devices on the minds of each individual of the two groups to measure the brain activity with exposure to each image. And what happened was a top in the mystery. The two groups confirmed to the scientists who recorded the results the presence of the phenomenon that we talked about a little while ago, namely the cross-race effect. The two groups took a long time to get to know each other.